Hello and welcome to this course on PostgreSQL beginner class. In this course you get to know about how does a database environment looks like, which is in this case we are going to use PostgreSQL to demonstrate the environments within a database system. Alright? So in this course we are going to talk about how do we install and set up our PostgreSQL, and also we're going to learn about some of the basic commands that will be helpful for you to excel in your day-to-day work as a database administrator. Alright, now let's take a look at the content of the course here. So first of all, we're going to talk about what is PostgreSQL. Next, we're going to go through where are we going to download the PostgreSQL, and we are going to create a new table using the pgadmin tool and also using the query. Alright, and we're going to talk about how do we import our data into PostgreSQL, how do we add in new columns into our Postgres table, how do we remove columns within a Postgres table. Okay, next we are going to perform some of the SQL commands, which we will start off by learning how to use this select statement to populate a couple of records that is available in our selected table. Okay, and next we're going to talk about how do we perform a filtration for our selected table. We are going to also deep dive into using the AND or operators to give you a better understanding on what are the differences between each of the operators, and also what is the difference when we add in our brackets at different logical statements. Okay, and the last that we're going to cover for our where filter is to use a wildcard to filter our table records. Okay, next we're going to talk about how do we order our table records, either by ascending or descending. We're going to do a summation of our records, and last but not least we're going to cover the differences between count and count distinct in our SQL query. Okay, so this is basically the overall content of this course here, and I hope you find this course very resourceful and informative in your career. Okay, so yep, that's all for today. Thanks for enrolling into this course, and I can't wait to see you in the next lessons. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this lesson. So what is PostgreSQL? Postgres is actually a database system. So why do we need a database system? Imagine if you are an owner of a supermarket, you would want to know how did your supermarket perform in a monthly basis. So how would you know at the end of the month your supermarket is making profits, or is it making more loss than profits? So this is where you will need to store all your transactional data into a database system. So we will store all our transactional data or any data related into tables for easy access and management. Okay, a very simple analogy is to imagine that a database is actually a parking lot to store all your data. Okay, so once you have your data ready, you can populate the data to view sales dashboards, or you can even use the data to build an AI model to predict what is the revenue for the coming months. Okay, so a database system is actually essential for us to store our data so that we know where can we locate and use the specific data, either to use it for analytical purpose or for reporting purpose. Alright, now to view the data in graphical charts, this is where BI and analytics comes into play. Okay, so BI is actually a system whereby raw data is fed into the system, and some of the transformation will happen to generate graphical charts to look at the different trend lines, or some of the graphical charts that will generate insights towards the business. Alright, so for more about BI, which is also called as the business intelligence system, you can take a look at the course here. I have the course for ClickSense, which offers a lot of different kinds of graphical charts. Or if you want to know more about a reporting system, you might also get interested to look into ClickView. Or if you are interested to look into Microsoft as a BI service provider, you can take a look into Power BI, which is a extended service that has been provided by Microsoft itself. Alright, so you can hop into this course and take a look what is BI all about, for you to have more exposure, starting from how do we store our raw data, moving forward to how do we perform analyticals, or how do we create reportings using our BI systems. Alright, so yep, that's all about a database system, and in this course we're going to use PostgreSQL as an example to demonstrate how a database system works. Okay, so yep, that's all for the lesson for today. Thanks for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Today we're going to talk about where are we going to download our PostgreSQL. Alright, now let's go to this URL here. Just hit on the link here, or you can type it on your browser. Alright, and then you will reach this page here. Okay, once you have reached this page here, select the OS that your machine is currently running on. So if you are running on a Linux machine, select Linux. If you are running on a MacBook, just click on Mac OS. For me, I'm gonna click on the Windows OS. Alright, now once you have clicked on the OS, you will be brought to another page here. Okay, so in this page here, just hit on the download the installer link here. Okay, just hit on this link here and it will bring you to the downloadable version page. Okay, so for me, I'm going to select on the latest version for Windows. Alright, I'm going to hit this download button here, and the download will begin shortly. Alright, now once the download is completed, go to the folder that you have stored your PostgreSQL. By default, it will be located inside the downloads folder. Okay, just right mouse click and hit on run as administrator here. Okay, and once the dialog box prompt out to enter your admin password, just enter your admin password and move on to the installation part. Okay, and now we will begin our installation for PostgreSQL. Alright, so let's hit the next button here, and if you want to change your folder directory here, you can just click on this button here and change the file path that you preferred. Alright, for me, I will just remain as it is, and I will hit on the next button. Okay, now once you hit on the next button, PostgreSQL will require you to enter a password for the database super user. Okay, just key the password here and please write it down somewhere. Write it down in a notepad or somewhere else, because once you forgotten this password here, we would not be able to trace what is the password that you have entered for the database super user here. Okay, so this database super user password is required when we hit onto our Postgres server. Okay, now let's hit on next, and this is the port where the server should listen on. Okay, so this is actually essential when you have other system to connect with. such as the BI system or other data warehousings and many more. Okay, so let's hit on next. And in this section here, Postgres will require us to select a locale to be used by the database cluster. Okay, so I'm gonna use the default locale here, and let's hit on next. And this will be the summary for all the installation settings that will be configured in our machine. Alright, now let's hit on next. And right now our PostgreSQL is ready to be installed. Hit on next again, and the setup will initiate immediately. Alright, now once the setup has finished, you will see another window here that tells us to install a stack builder for additional tools, drivers, and applications to complement your PostgreSQL installation. So for me, I will uncheck this because in this course we are not going to explore on stack builder here. Alright, so I'm gonna uncheck this box here and I hit on finish. Alright, so once the installation has been completed, you can go to the path where you installed your PostgreSQL. So for me, it's located in this PC, in my C drive. Go to the program files and I locate PostgreSQL. Go to the version of the Postgres that has been installed, and I will go to pgadmin, go to the bin folder, and I will open the pgadmin4 here. Alright, so this is where we will open the user interface for the PostgreSQL. Alright, now let's open this application here, and now it will require us to set up a master password for the pgadmin. Alright, this password is required whenever we enter the pgadmin UI here. Alright, so enter the password and then hit on OK. Alright, and now we are going to connect to our PostgreSQL server here. Alright, just click on this servers here, and we're going to select our PostgreSQL 14 here. Alright, and once we have clicked this PostgreSQL 14 here, it will prompt out to enter the password for the user. Alright, so this is the password where we have entered during the installation. Alright, so once you entered the password, hit on OK, and once it is connected, you should be able to see the other three drop downs here. You have the databases, you have the group rows, and you have the table spaces. Okay, so in this course we are going to focus more on the database drop down here. Okay, so yep, this will covers all for the lesson on the Postgres installation. Thanks for watching this learning module, and I can't wait to see you in the next lessons. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Now that we have known how to install and fire up our pgadmin, let's take a look on how do we create new tables into our PostgreSQL. Alright, now let's hit on the drop down for the database here. Okay, and then let's hit on the drop down for the schemas, and let's go to the tables. Okay, now if we right mouse click on the tables, you can see there's a create, and from here we can choose to create a table. Alright, let's hit on it, and here is the UI to create a new table. Okay, now let's create a new table here. Let's give this a table name. Let's call it as test1. Okay, and let's hit on the save buttons. Alright, now we can see the table for test1 has been created, and let's hit on the drop down for test1 table, and let's right mouse click on the columns. Let's go to create, and we're gonna create new columns into the table. Alright, let's hit on it, and let's give the column a name here. Let's put in name. Okay, now we can see there's an error here stating that column type cannot be empty. Alright, so let's move on to the definitions, and here we can see we need to fill in the data type here. Alright, let's hit on the drop down here, and we can see there are a list of selection that we can select. Alright, so we have the character, we have the big integer, we have the boolean, we have the character, and the character varying. Right, so for me, I'm going to choose character varying. In short, is actually varchar. Right, so this will actually allow the column to hold a string of text. Okay, now let's select character varying here, because name will be a string field. Right, now let's hit on save, and now we can see the column name has been created. Right, now this is how we create a table and its respective columns using the pgadmin UI. Now what if we want to create a table using SQL commands? Right, so let's go to the tables here, right mouse click on it, and we're gonna select query tool. Alright, let's hit on it, and right now we can see the query editor has been fired up. Alright, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna create table. Let's put in a bracket and ending with a semicolon. Alright, so each of the query have to be ended with a semicolon. Alright, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna create the table name called as, let's put in test2. Alright, now let's enter a new line here, and we're gonna add in our column name. Right, let's put in our first name. Right, and this will be varchar. Alright, and our last name, this will also be varchar. Right, now let's run this SQL command here by clicking on the execute button here. Alright, let's hit on this execute button, and right now we can see the query to create table is successful. However, we couldn't see the tables has been reflected in our navigation panel. Right, so the table for test2 is not available in our table drop down panel. Right, so what we're gonna do is actually we need to refresh the list of the table here. Alright, so I'm gonna click on these tables here, and I'm gonna hit on the keyboard key F5. Alright, now once the navigation pane has been refreshed, we can see the tables now is actually reading 3 tables. Our test2 table has been created. Let's take a look at the columns inside the table. Go to the column drop down here, and we can see the first name and last name has been created in our test2 table. Alright, so yep, that's all about how to create tables in PostgreSQL, and that's all for the lesson today. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Today we're gonna create a table to store all the CSV records into our PostgreSQL. The CSV file looks like this. Okay, so we have the column here, the region, the country, item type, sales channel, or the priority, or the date, or the ID, ship date, the unit sold, unit price, unit cost, total revenue, total cost, and also the total profit column. Okay, so we're gonna store this table into our PostgreSQL, right? Now before we do that, let's create a new SQL file. Alright, now let's right mouse click and let's go to new, and we select text document, right? Now for this, let's enter create table. Okay, and the file extension, we're gonna change it to SQL. Alright, now if you couldn't locate the file extension, you need to actually go to the view here, and you need to make sure you have the file name extensions checked. Alright, so once you have this extension checked here, you can change the file extension. Alright, so let's hit on yes. Now we have a SQL file created, and let's go back to our pgadmin. Okay, and let's right mouse click on the tables, and let's go to the query tool. Okay, now we're gonna go to the open file here, and we're gonna select on the new SQL file that we have created. Alright, now let's hit on select, and now we can see the create table SQL file has been opened, right? So right now what we're gonna do here is we are going to remove the two test table here, because we are not going to use these two table anymore. Alright, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna use the drop table SQL command to drop the table for test 1 and also for test 2. Alright, now let's hit on the execute button, and right now we can see the drop table query is successful. Alright, so right now if we go to our tables and we hit on the refresh F5 keyboard button, we can see the test 1 and test 2 table is no longer available, right? So right now if we run the query again, we are going to hit on error, because the table is no longer exists in our schema, right? So do take a note that SQL command is actually a one-way direction. Okay, there's no turning back unless you create the table again. Alright, so once you have dropped the table, it's going to be gone forever, right? So right now let's remove these two SQL command here, and we're gonna start off by creating a new table to replace the test table here. Alright, so we're gonna say drop table if the table exists. Okay, so please drop the table of test here if it exists, right? So if you run this SQL command here and we refresh our navigation pane here, the table for test has been removed, right? So if we trigger the execute button again, it will prompt out a notice. Table test does not exist anymore, so it's going to skip this query here, right? So it won't run into error if we use the if exists statement when we are dropping our table, right? Now for here, I'm gonna enter a new line here, and I'm gonna say create table of sales, right? And I'm gonna enter the bracket in with the semicolon, and let's enter a new line here, and I'm gonna fill in all the column that is available in our raw data. Alright, so I'm gonna fill in region, I'm gonna fill in country, and also the item type here. Okay, so for the region, this is gonna be a warchar. Country will be also warchar here. And for the field item type here, because there's a space in between here, we're gonna enclose the field with a double quote here, right? So for item type, we're gonna put in warchar as well. Okay, and let's try to run our query. Alright, so there's a syntax error at here. So what is wrong with our query? So this comma here should be residing at the end of each of the field types, right? So let's run again, and right now we can see the create table query has been executed successfully. Alright, right now when we refresh our schema, we can see the sales table has been created with 3 new columns within the table. Alright, now that we have created the sales table, how do we actually add in the rest of the table here? You can continue to actually add in the fields right below here, but another way to do this is to actually use the alter table query. Alright, so I'm gonna comment out the first two queries that we have here. Just put in a / and a star, and right where we want to end the comment section, we're gonna put in star and the / okay, so this will actually comment out all the query above. Alright, so we're gonna do alter table test. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna use the add column query. Okay, so we're gonna add column for our sales channel. Alright, so remember to add in a double quote here because there's a space in between the field, and we're gonna add in a varchar here as the data type. Alright, so let's go back to the next field. Here is the order priority. Alright, so if we want to do it in a much more quicker way, we can actually count the number of fields that we have in our raw data here. Okay, so we're gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so we're gonna create 10 columns in our database, right? So I'm gonna copy this line here and paste it over, and let me copy again, paste it over. Now I copy these 4 lines here, paste it over, and now I would just need 2 more lines at below here, right? So the next thing I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna replace it with the respective field names, right? So I'm gonna change it with the order priority here. For the order date, I'm gonna change it to order date here, order ID, ship date, unit sold, unit price, unit cost. Okay, let's do the same for total revenue, total cost here, and the last will be the total profit, right? So let's copy this here, paste it over, change this to profit. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna change all these to the respective data types. Alright, so for unit sold it's gonna be the whole number, right? Unlike for our unit price column, unit cost column, these are the floating numbers, right? These are all numbers with decimal points. So what we're gonna do here for unit sold, let's go to unit sold, we're gonna change this to double precision. Okay, next for unit price, we're gonna change it to decimal. Same for the unique cost here, just paste it over for the rest of the column here. And let's remove the comma here, and we're gonna replace it with a semicolon. Okay, now let's execute the query here. So there's a error prompt out is stating relation test does not exist. So remember, we have already dropped the table test here, and we have renamed the table to sales, right? So let's change this to sales, and let's execute the query, and we can see that the query for auto table has been executed successfully. Alright, now let's refresh our schema, and right now we can see there is 14 columns that has been returned, right? Now let's say, for example, we want to drop the region column from our sales table, right? So what we can do here is add in a comma, and we're gonna use the drop column SQL command. Okay, we're gonna just drop column region. Alright, now let's run this query here, and you will be still hitting error because the rest of the column has been added into the table. So what we can do here, we can actually comment out the lines to add the columns here. We will only run the drop column command here. Alright, now let's hit on execute, and right now we can see the query has been successfully executed. Now when we refresh the schema, it will only return 13 columns in our database. Okay, so for now, let's add in the region column back into our sales table. So let's use the add column region, and we're gonna add in the data type varchar here. Alright, so let's add the region column back into our sales table, so that we can see in our schema we have 14 columns residing in our sales table. Alright, so yep, this is basically how we add in new columns, how we remove columns, how we create a table, how to drop a table in our PostgreSQL. So in the next tutorial, we're gonna learn how to copy all of the records here to be stored into our PostgreSQL. Alright, so yep, that's all for the lesson for today. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks, and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Today we're gonna learn how to extract raw CSV file into our PostgreSQL. Alright, now before we begin the learning module today, let's remove this add column region here, and we're gonna comment the whole script that we have here. Alright, we're gonna comment everything here, and we're gonna start off with a new line. Alright, so we're gonna use the copy Postgres command, and we're gonna copy the records into our sales table. Alright, now we add in the brackets and with a semicolon, and we're gonna add in the from here to tell Postgres that we are actually copying from this file path here. So I stored my file in this SampleDB folder. I'm gonna copy this file path here, and I'm gonna paste it over here. Next, I'm gonna add in a backslash, and I'm gonna add in the file name. Alright, let's go back to the file path here, and I'm gonna click on this to copy the file name. Alright, let's go back to our pgadmin, paste it over, and let's add in a new line, and let's add in a delimiter. Okay, delimiter, which is comma. Alright, because CSV file it stands for comma separated value. Okay, so we add in the delimiter as comma. Okay, and let's enter a new line, and we're gonna add in CSV header. Alright, so in this bracket here, we're gonna add in all the headers that we have in our raw data. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna copy all of the column names here. Alright, let's copy and let's go back to pgadmin and I'm gonna paste it here. Alright, next I'm gonna just edit a comma for each of the field names here. Alright, so for the field names with space in between, let's add in the double quote. Alright, let's add in double quote here, let's add in a comma, and I'm gonna add in double quote here, let's add in a comma again, put in a double quote, same for the order ID, ship date, let's enter a new line here, and let's put in double quote here, put in double quote for unit price, same goes for unit cost, total revenue, total cost, and also total profit. So what happens if we use a single quote instead of a double quote? Let's see how it works out, right? Let's hit on execute, and we can see here PostgreSQL actually return a syntax error at total profit column. Alright, so single quote is meant to be used as a string field, right? So to denote a field which is separated by a space, we need to use double quotes. Alright, now let's hit on the execute button here, and we can see the copy query is executed successfully, right? So yep, that's all for the lesson today, and in the next tutorial we're gonna talk about how do we take a look at the table that we have stored into PostgreSQL. Alright, so that's all for the lesson today. Thanks for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Today we are going to learn about how do we display the table records that we have in our PostgreSQL table. Alright, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the select SQL command to populate the columns we have in our table. Alright, so we're gonna do select country from our sales table. Alright, now we're gonna add in a semicolon, and let's try to run the query. Alright, now we can see the country column has been populated, right? So right now if we have a very long list of data records stored in our table, we want to know only the first few records to see what is the values that is actually storing inside the specific column. Alright, so what we can do is we can add in limit to show only a specific amount of records to be generated as the output. Okay, so we're gonna do limit 10, and let's execute this query here, and now we can see there are 10 records has been returned, right? So when we are selecting the table name, this is actually non-case sensitive. Alright, so if I do country or in capitalized letters, alright, and let's try to run this query, I'm still getting the same results, right? Now let's try for the item type columns here, right? So let's type in item type all in small capital letters, and let's try to run our table. Now it returns error because columns with double quotes here, it has to read the exact capitalization that has been stored in our table, right? So it has to be capital I and a capital T. Alright, now let's run this query again, and right now we can see our item type and also country has been generated in our data output, right? Next, we can also select all of the columns within a table without actually typing the columns one by one. We can actually use a asterisk to represent all of the columns here. Alright, now let's run our query here, and right now we can see all our columns has been displayed. Okay, so yep, that's all about the lesson on how do we generate the records within our table using the select statement. And in the next tutorial, we're gonna take a look on how do we use the where filter to filter a specific records in our table. Okay, so thanks for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Now let's take a look how do we use a filtration criteria to filter our report by a selected number of records. Okay, so to do that, we need to add in the where filter, and we're gonna filter the data where all the records are based in region Europe. Okay, now let's execute this query here. It returns error because this limit here have to be the very bottom of the SQL command. Okay, so let's do this and we hit on execute. Right, now we can see all the data now has been filtered to region equal to Europe. Right, now this is to filter by a varchar column. What if we want to filter by a numeric column? Alright, now we can use the logical operator greater than or lesser than in a numeric column, right? So I'm gonna change this to double quote, and I change this to unit cost. Okay, now instead of Europe, I'm gonna change this to greater than 100. So we want to know what are the records that has a unit cost that is greater than 100, right? Now let's run this query here, and let's take a look at our unit cost column. And right now we can see all the records are greater than 100, right? So what if we do a logical operator on top of a varchar column, right? Let's try to do where region greater than 100, right? Let's see what happened, and it will say the operator does not exist because it just didn't fit the computation. Alright, so we couldn't compute a text column to perform some numeric operations, right? Now let's remove this filter here. Okay, and we're gonna rerun the query again, and let's try to filter by a specific year, right? We want to filter the ship date, which is in the year of 2015. Alright, let's say we want to filter it by 2015. So we're gonna say where, and let's add in a extract function to extract the year from our ship date column, right? So before we can extract the year from ship date column, we need to change the data type from varchar to a date formats, right? So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna add in the toDate function to convert the ship date into a date function, right? And right now let's add in the formatting for the ship date column. So this formatting should be in the month / date and the year format, right? We're gonna extract the year from this date here, and the year to be extracted will be 2015. Alright, now let's run this query here, and right now we can see our records are all based on the records on year 2015, right? So yep, this basically covers everything on how do we filter on a string field, how do we filter on a numeric field, and how do we filter to capture records based on a specific year, right? So yep, that's all for the lesson today. Hope you enjoy watching this tutorial, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Now that we know how to filter by string columns, we know how to filter by numeric columns, and also we know how to filter by date columns. Today we're going to take a look how to filter by a dynamic filtration based on the maximum year that we have in our table, right? So for example, we want to filter not a hard-coded value here, we want to filter by the maximum year that we have in our ship date column, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to remove this hard-coded value here, and we're going to select the max of the extracted date, okay, from our sales table, right? Now let's run this query here. It's stating error because we need to include a parenthesis right here. Okay, now let's try to run this query here, and right now we can see the records has been filtered to our maximum year of our ship date column. Okay, so this is how we filter our data using a dynamic filtration based on our max year extracted from our ship date column. Alright, so we can also use the logical operator such as the OR operator here to filter the data based on our maximum year and also our last year data. So I'm gonna copy this line here and I paste it over. So what I'm gonna do here is in the second line of the maximum year extraction, I'm gonna add in -1. Alright, so the first filter will return 2017 data and the second filter will return 2016 data. Alright, so let's remove the limit here so that we can see a full list of records based on the filter for the maximum year and the last year data. Alright, now let's execute the script here. This is returning error because we do not need a where here. Okay, now let's execute the script again, and right now we can see our data set is comprises of 2017 data and also 2016 data as well, right? So right now let's add in a logical AND statement. Okay, so we want to tell Postgres to return the value that is comprises of 2017 data and also 2016 data and the region which is equivalent to Europe. Alright, now let's run the script here and let's take a look at our region column. Alright, but notice we still have region other than Europe existing in our data, right? This is because SQL command will execute the where statement starting from the first filter, which will give us all the records that is in the year of 2017, and next it will return the previous year records, which is 2016. But here for 2016 data, it is only going to capture all the records that is comprises of Europe region, right? So if you can see, 2016 data is all reading Europe, right? Just only the data for 2017 is comprises of all regions, right? So this is where we need to include brackets to tell Postgres that this is actually one set of logical operator to be executed, and the result of these logical operators will be executed together with the second logical operator here, right? So these results will give us the data that is comprises of the maximum year data and also the last year data, and only for those region that is from Europe, right? Now let's try to execute this script here. Oops, we run into error. We need to actually have this where clause here outside of the parenthesis, right? Now let's execute the command again, and right now we can see we are only left with 4 records in this SQL filter, right? So we only have data for 2017, and the data is from the region Europe together with all the last year data that is from Europe, right? So this is why brackets are important when we are running nested logical operators like this, right? So yep, that covers all the lesson for today. We talk about how to perform a dynamic filtration based on the maximum date or the last year records, and we also did logical OR and logical AND statements to capture region from Europe, and also we had demonstrated how to use brackets in cases where we need to have nested logical operators to be performed first and followed by the second logical operators, right? So yeah, that's all about the lesson for today. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Now that we have know how to perform dynamic filtrations, and we have know when are the scenarios to use brackets, today we're going to talk about how do we use wildcards to filter a certain amount of records, right? So to start off with wildcards, we will just change the equal signs to like, right? And let's execute the query, and we can see all the region that has the string Europe will be captured in the wildcard syntax here, right? So what if we remove the first character in the string text, right? Let's see if this can capture the 4 records of Europe here, right? Now let's execute the command here. Right now the wildcard SQL did not catch anything here because we are missing the wildcard symbol at the front of the search text, right? So now let's execute our query, and right now we can see our records are showing the region with Europe, right? So this is where we use wildcard to generate our records, right? Can we use wildcard to capture numeric fields, right? So let's say for example, I want to capture unit source that contains the integer 0 in between the records here, right? So I want to capture 5070 as a return result of the SQL command, right? So I'm gonna change this to units so, and I'm gonna change this to wildcard 0, right? Now let's try to execute the query here, and right now we can see the wildcard SQL returns error because we could not use wildcard for integer or numeric fields, right? So a wildcard can only be applied in string columns, right? Now let's remove this query here and also the and here, and let's rerun our query. So right now if I want to capture a wildcard, for example, I want to capture country with space in between, right? So this is quite straightforward. What we need to do is we will do and country like single quote, and we add in our wildcard and put in the space, right? Now let's try to run our query. It returns Moldova. So instead of returning Sri Lanka, it returns Moldova. Why is this happening? Alright, because it could be right after the string Moldova, it contains a space behind the string here, right? So if we want to capture country with spaces in between the text field, we have to add in the ampersand right after the space here. Okay, now let's run our query again. And right now we can see we are capturing Sri Lanka, Moldova, Costa Rica, anything that has spaces in between the country column, right? So yeah, this basically covers everything about how to use wildcard when we are filtering our records. And yep, that's all for the lesson for today. Thanks for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Today we're gonna learn how to sort our table result in a specific order, right? So the order by SQL will be located right before we end the SQL command, alright? So it will be residing right before the semicolon, right? So we're gonna add in order by, let's order our records followed by the alphabetical order of country column, alright? So we're gonna order by country. Alright, now let's try to execute our query. And right now we can see these are returning all the records sorted by the alphabetical order of the records, right? Now if you want to sort our records in the descending alphabetical order, we can add in the descending syntax here, right? So right now we can see our orders are ordered by the descending alphabetical order, right? So this is for text columns, right? What if we want to order by the numeric columns? So can we sort our records by the descending order of our unit sold column? Alright, so I'm gonna change this to double quote and I add in units sold. So let's run this query here, and right now we can see the records with the highest unit sold is placed on the very first records, followed by the subsequent records and so on, right? So this is how we order our records according to the priority that we want to look at. And yep, that's all for the lesson for today. Thanks for watching this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Now that we have learned how to perform a where SQL filter, we have talked about how do we filter by the date column. We have talked about how do we use while match to filter by a certain rules. Lastly, we talk about how to order by a specific columns, either by ascending or descending. Alright, so I'm gonna save this file here, and today's section we're gonna start off with a fresh file. Let's create a new file, and we're gonna start off with how to perform a sum SQL command, right? So I'm gonna change this extension to SQL, and if you can locate the extension file, go to the view and make sure the file name extensions is checked. Alright, so for this warning here, just click on yes. Alright, so now we have the new SQL file here. Let's go back to pgadmin and let's open a new file. Go to the sum SQL file here, right? Just double click on this file here and we'll start off with a new fresh SQL file. Alright, so today we're gonna talk about how do we sum the records that we have in our PostgreSQL. Alright, so I'm gonna start off by selecting the sum of our, let's say for example, we want to sum off by the total revenue column. Alright, so we're gonna start off with a double quote and we enter total revenue. Alright, so where's this table from? Is from the sales table, right? So let's run this query here, and it will return a total sum of all the records in our table. Alright, so what if we want to look at the sum of our total revenue based on our country that we have sales, right? So what we can do is we're gonna add in the country, right? So let's run this code here, and it will prompt out an error. So the error is quite straightforward here. Our column country must appear in the group by clause. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add in the group by clause here and add in country, right? Now let's run our query here, and right now we can see our summation of the total revenue column has been categorized into different countries, right? So if we want to look at our summation from the highest revenue to the lowest revenue by country, we're gonna add in the order by sum of our total revenue column, right? So let's run this query here, and by default, if we did not add in the order rule here, it will be ordered by the ascending numeric order, right? So let's add in the rule here, descending. Let's run our script here, and right now we can see the highest revenue generated by country is Honduras, right? Followed by Myanmar, and so on, right? So what if we want to know the revenue generated by a specific region, right? So we can always use a where clause here to filter by the specific region. For example, right now we want to take a look at the region for Asia, and let's run the script here. It's not gonna happen, right? It will return syntax error because the where statement has to be before the group by statement. Alright, so we're gonna paste it before the group by statement here, and let's run the query again, and right now we can see these are the list of the countries by the region of Asia, right? So this is how we're gonna use the capability of SQL query to generate the result that we want to look at. If we want to look at our total revenue by country, we can do that. If we want to look at our total revenue by a specific region, we can also do that, and so on and so forth, right? And yep, this concludes the lesson for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I can't wait to see you in the next module. Thanks and bye bye. Alright guys, welcome back to this learning module. Now that we have learned how to use sum with the group by clause together, today we're gonna start a fresh lesson again to take a look on how we use the distinct statement to perform various kinds of counts and also various kind of ways to display our table records, right? So let's save this file here, and let's create a new file. I'm going to create a text document here, and I'm going to call it distinct. Alright, remember to change the file extension, right? Okay, just like this. Now let's go back to pgadmin, and I'm going to open the new file that has been created. Alright, just double click on this. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is, let's say we want to take a look at all the countries that we have in our sales table. Alright, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do select region from our sales table. Alright, add in a semicolon, and we're gonna run the script here. Alright, So notice that we have duplicates records in our table here, alright? So if we just want to know what is the region that we have in our records, we can always use the distinct statement to return only the result that is unique for each of the records in our output, right? So let's run the query again, and right now we can see there is only 7 distinct records of regions in our sales table, right? So this is how we use distinct to only select the unique records in our table, alright? So that's all for the tutorial today. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope you can apply some of the techniques that has been learned in your career. Alright? Thanks and bye bye.